You don't really notice the cracks in a house until you stop brushing through it. At least I didn't. The kind of man I was, still think I am, mostly, was always moving. Early mornings, late nights, suit pressed, tie tight, phone buzzing. I used to think silence meant progress was stalling. Now I know better. My name is Elliot Granger, 44 years old. Born in Des Moines, made my name in Chicago. I ran a boutique investment consultancy that catered to medium-sized businesses looking for a sharp edge. For nearly 2 decades, my firm thrived. We weren't flashy, but we were smart, and clients trusted us with big decisions. I had a wife, Dana. Still do, technically. We married just after I turned 30. She was a painter then, portraits mostly. She had this way of capturing someone's expression, like she was seeing something deeper. Something even they didn't see. Maybe that was the problem. Anyway, it started with a birthday card. Mine, actually. Dana always wrote in the cards. Never just, "Love, Dana." She used to fill the blank space with long, looping letters that made me feel like I was the only man in the world. That year, though, just 2 months ago, it was different. "Happy birthday, Elliot. Hope you take a breath and enjoy today. Dana." That was it. I stared at it longer than I cared to admit. It wasn't what it said. It was what it didn't say. No inside joke. No mention of the watch I'd hinted at for weeks. No warm memory from our earlier years. Just a polite sentiment, like something you'd write to a coworker you barely knew. At first, I told myself it was stress. We'd had a rough year. The markets dipped, and a few of our major clients went cold. I cut my own salary to keep things running and took on consulting gigs outside the firm. Dana had picked up teaching art at a local community center, mostly to keep herself busy. That's what she said, anyway. But I knew something was off. There's a tone in a marriage, like background music. You don't always listen to it, but you notice when it changes. And ours had gone flat. It wasn't just the card. It was the phone, too. I started noticing her phone was always face down. Not once in 15 years had she been secretive with it. If it buzzed during dinner, she used to smile and say, "Ignore it. You're more important." Lately, though, she'd snatch it up like it was ticking. I wasn't proud of what I did next. But this isn't a story about pride. One morning, she left her phone on the counter while she stepped into the backyard to feed the birds, something she never used to do, but had suddenly taken up. I checked it. Just once. Just long enough to see a name. Caleb. No last name. Just Caleb. I scrolled back and saw they'd been texting for weeks. I didn't open the messages. Couldn't. My hands were shaking. My chest felt hollow. I dropped the phone where I found it and backed away like I'd touched fire. That night, I asked her if she was happy. She looked up from her tea, surprised. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one." She sipped slowly, then nodded. "I think so. Are you?" I wanted to say no. That I was unraveling. That I'd seen her texts. That I hated how far apart we drifted. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Yeah. Just wondering." It wasn't true. I was falling through something, and I didn't know how deep it went. Over the next week, I paid more attention. I noticed things, small things. She hummed more often, but never songs I recognized. She stayed late at the studio. Once, I caught her smiling at her phone in a way that used to be reserved for me. One evening, while she was in the shower, I went out to the garage to grab a screwdriver and found her other canvas bag tucked behind the workbench. She kept it hidden, which was strange. Dana never hid things, especially not her art. Inside were 3 small paintings, each of the same man. Same eyes. Same lean shoulders. Same wistful expression. And he wasn't me. I brought the bag inside. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted her to see that I had found it. Maybe I wanted to confront her. Maybe I just needed to know I wasn't going crazy. She came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping, and froze when she saw it on the kitchen table. "You went through my things?" she said, low and quiet, more stunned than angry. I didn't answer. I couldn't stop looking at the paintings. 3 of them, each a slightly different angle, like she'd studied him for hours. One with his eyes closed, one looking straight ahead, one with a crooked half smile. "Who is he?" I asked. She didn't lie. "Not really." "His name's Caleb," she said, sitting down across from me, still clutching the towel like it might protect her from the truth. "He's a model. He comes to the center on Tuesdays. I paint him. That's all?" She paused. That pause was everything. "Dana," I said carefully, "are you having an affair?" She looked down at the table. Not at the paintings. At the table. "I don't know what I'm doing," she said finally. Not a yes. Not a no. Just that. We didn't speak much after that. Not that night. Not the next day. We moved around each other like ghosts, pretending we didn't notice the sudden stillness in the house. But the truth had already spread between us like spilled ink. I wanted to be angry. Wanted to shout, slam something, accuse her of betrayal. But I couldn't summon it. Because somewhere inside, I felt like maybe I'd let it happen. That somehow, in all my effort to protect our future, I'd lost track of the present. Still, I needed answers. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my brother, Mark. Mark and I aren't close. He's younger, teaches music at a high school in Madison. He's one of those people who still sends handwritten letters and rides a bicycle to work. The kind of guy who keeps bees and actually enjoys it. But he's also the only person who wouldn't immediately judge me. And that's what I needed. We met halfway in Rockford, Illinois, at a sad little diner with chipped coffee mugs and the smell of old bacon. I laid it out for him. The card. The phone. The paintings. Caleb. He didn't say anything for a while, just stirred his coffee and listened. Finally he said, "Did she ask for money?" I blinked. "What?" "I mean, has she seemed desperate? About finances?" I frowned. "No. I mean, things have been tight, but I've kept us afloat. She knows that." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I leaned back in the booth. "You think she's, seeing this guy for money?" "I don't know," he said. "But people do strange things when they're scared. Especially when they feel like their partner won't understand." That stuck with me. I started looking through our accounts that night. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I suddenly realized I had no idea what she'd been doing. That's when I saw the withdrawals. Small at first. Then bigger. A few $1,000s here, another there. Always to cash. Over the past 4 months, nearly $20,000 was gone. And she hadn't said a word. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to know more. So the next Tuesday, I followed her. She left the house at 5:30 p.m., right after a rushed kiss on the cheek. "Late night at the center," she said. "We're doing a long session with the model." I followed at a distance, windows down, radio off. She drove past the center. Kept going. 20 minutes north. She parked outside a small, nondescript building that looked like an old motel converted into apartments. She didn't knock. She used a key. I waited in the car. 15 minutes. 30. An hour. Then I got out. My legs were shaking. I walked past the cars and up to the window, half hoping to see nothing. but the light was on, and the blinds were open just enough. I saw her inside, laughing. And then I saw him. Caleb. He handed her a glass of wine. She took it and leaned into him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like I never existed. I didn't go in. I didn't knock. I just walked back to my car and sat there until it was dark, and then drove home in silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at those 3 paintings. The same man. The same expression. The same lie. But here's where it gets strange. Because the next day, she came home and said something I didn't expect. "I want to tell you everything," she said. And then she started to cry. I didn't say anything when she started crying. Just watched her. It wasn't the kind of crying people do to manipulate. It was ugly, shaking, hands pressed over her face like she was trying to hide from herself. "I didn't plan for any of this," she said through the tears. "I swear, Elliot. I didn't go looking for it." I should have stopped her right there. Should have told her I didn't want to hear it. But I did. I needed to. "Tell me," I said. She sat down slowly, wiped her face with her sleeve like a kid, and took a long breath. "It started after you cut your salary," she said. "I didn't want to tell you, but I was scared. I could see how stressed you were, how much you were taking on. And I felt useless." I frowned. "Dana, you know I never expected you to." "I know," she interrupted. "I know you didn't. That's the problem. I wanted to help. I just didn't know how." She told me that after picking up more hours at the community center, she started offering private sessions on the side. Portraits, landscapes, pet paintings, even. Anything to bring in extra money. That's how she met Caleb. "He came in asking if I could paint his mother's portrait," she said. "Said he wanted to give it to her before she passed. Stage 4 cancer." I rolled my eyes before I could stop myself. "I know how it sounds," she said, catching it. But I believed him. I did the portrait. He cried when I gave it to him. Then he asked if I could paint him, just a personal project. She paused. "And then he offered me money. A lot of it. More than I'd ever been paid for a single commission. Said he had an inheritance. That he believed in artists and wanted to support them. And I didn't ask too many questions." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. "The first one was 5,000. Then another for 10. And then you took $20,000 from our account, Dana." "I put some back," she snapped before softening again. "I was going to tell you. I was just trying to buy time. Why the lies? Why hide it? Why the apartment?" She looked away. "That's when it got messy." She said Caleb started calling her at night, showing up unannounced at the center, saying things that made her uncomfortable. At first, it was flattery. Then it turned into pressure. Guilt. He'd ask her to come over and drink wine, talk about art. Just for inspiration. She felt trapped. "You had a key," I said. "He gave it to me. Said it was so I could let myself in to set up for a painting session. I swear, Elliot, I never stayed the night. I was scared. I didn't want him showing up here. I thought if I just kept the peace." She trailed off. "I made a mistake," she said finally. "A lot of them. But I never." Her voice broke. "I never meant to hurt you." That was the moment I realized something awful. I believed her. Not because I wanted to. Not because I forgave her. But because the story didn't feel rehearsed. It felt messy. Human. Sad. I sat back and looked at the woman I'd married. The one who used to leave paint-streaked notes in my briefcase. The one who sang along to the radio off-key and didn't care who heard. The one who, somehow, had gotten so lost that she was now sitting across from me in our kitchen, crying over a man neither of us really knew. "Did you love him?" I asked. "No," she said instantly. "I was just afraid and tired of pretending we were fine." We didn't say much after that. I went to bed. She slept on the couch. At least, I think she did. I was too drained to check. The next day, I got a call from my office manager, Amanda. She said a man had come by asking for me. Said his name was Caleb. My blood ran cold. "He left something for you," she said. "A painting." "A what?" "It's you," she said. "Kind of eerie, actually." When I got to the office, I found it propped against my door. It was a portrait. Of me. But not as I am. Not in a suit, not smiling. It was me with tired eyes, hunched shoulders, and a vague expression of sorrow. Like someone who had seen the worst of a storm, but hadn't quite made it out. I don't know how he painted it. I don't know when he watched me long enough to get it right. But it was me. And it terrified me. Taped to the back was a note. "Sometimes you see someone more clearly than they see themselves." See? I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it in the supply closet and locked the door. I took the rest of the day off after finding that painting. There are moments in life that don't feel quite real, where the world warps just slightly, like heat waves off asphalt. That was one of them. I kept checking the back seat as I drove, half expecting Caleb to pop up like something out of a bad thriller. But it was just me and my thoughts. When I got home, Dana was gone. No note. No text. Just a half-full mug of cold coffee on the counter, and her phone charger missing. I paced the house like a caged animal for over an hour. Tried calling twice. Straight to voicemail. I didn't know if I was worried or angry. Probably both. Maybe neither. At that point, I wasn't sure what I felt. Then, around 7 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "You deserve answers. Come alone. 158 Oak Ridge. 8 p.m. I read it a dozen times. 158 Oak Ridge was Caleb's building. The converted motel. I should have ignored it. I should have called someone. But instead, like every idiot in every story like this, I grabbed my coat and went. When I got there, I parked half a block away and watched the building from a distance. No movement. Just the flicker of a TV screen behind one curtain. I walked to the door of 204 and knocked. No answer. I tried the knob. It was unlocked. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and acrylic paint. There were canvases everywhere, dozens of them. All portraits. Some were clearly Dana's, but others were rougher, darker. Angry lines. Twisted faces. The kind of art that unsettles you. And in the center of the room was Caleb, sitting cross-legged on the floor, barefoot, shirtless, paint smeared on his arms. "I knew you'd come," he said without looking up. I didn't say anything. Just stepped in slowly and closed the door behind me. "I didn't hurt her," he said. "If that's what you're worried about. Where is she?" He shrugged. "Out. Thinking. She'll come back." I clenched my fists. "Why did you text me?" He stood and walked to the far wall, where a new canvas sat covered with a sheet. "I wanted to show you something," he said. He pulled the sheet down. It was another painting of me. This one was different. It wasn't sorrowful like the last. It was broken. My eyes looked hollow. My hands were outstretched like I was trying to hold something that had already slipped away. "I see people," Caleb said softly. "See who they really are. And you're not the man you think you are." I turned to leave. This was a mistake. All of it. But then he said, "She asked me to stop." That made me pause. She said she wanted to go back to you, that it was a mistake, that she'd made a mess and didn't want to lie anymore. I turned back slowly. She begged me, he continued, said she still loved you, that she wanted to fix it. I didn't know if he was lying. I didn't know if he was insane. But something in the way he said it, calm, like a fact, made me believe it. So why are you telling me? I asked. Because I wanted you to know, he said. You won. I wasn't playing. He gave a crooked smile. That's what makes it worse. I left without another word. When I got home, Dana was in the kitchen. She didn't speak, just walked up to me, wrapped her arms around me, and cried into my chest. And for the first time in weeks, I let her. That night we talked. Really talked. Not about Caleb, not directly, but about everything else. The money, the fear, the loneliness, the silence that had crept into our marriage and made a home there. I felt like I was disappearing, she said. Like I could vanish and you wouldn't notice for days. I noticed, I said. I just didn't know how to fix it. We fell asleep on the couch, tangled together like we used to be. Like maybe we could start again. But the next morning, things changed. Because when I went to open my office email, I found a message from an address I didn't recognize. No subject. No text. Just an attachment. A recording. I clicked play. It was audio. Just voices. Dana's voice. And Caleb's. Laughing. Talking. Whispering. And then, Dana. He wouldn't understand. He's not like us. Caleb. You don't owe him anything. Dana. I know. I hate lying. Caleb. Then don't. Stay. I paused the recording there. I didn't listen to the rest. Didn't need to. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in the living room with the recording playing on loop in my head, every sentence echoing like a hollow thud in my chest. He wouldn't understand. He's not like us. Like us? I kept wondering what that meant. Were they in love? Were they laughing at me behind my back? Or was it something worse? Some twisted kinship formed from desperation and guilt? She made eggs that morning, humming something tuneless. Her back turned to me, hair up, sleeves rolled. And for a moment, I hated her. Not because she cheated, but because she had lied so beautifully. I opened my laptop and listened to the whole recording. Headphones on, door shut, heart heavy. The last 30 seconds were the worst. Caleb, if it ever comes out, just say I pressured you. He'll believe it. He wants to. Dana, quietly. Okay. That was it. Not. No. Not. That's not true. Just okay. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe her. That maybe Caleb had edited the audio, cut pieces together to make her sound worse. But deep down I knew. She wasn't the woman in the wedding photos anymore. She wasn't even the woman who cried in my arms just 2 nights ago. She was someone else. And I didn't know if I could ever find the real version of her again. That night, I made a plan. I stayed late at the office. Told her I was meeting a potential client. She kissed me goodbye, called me babe, like it meant something, and turned back to her canvas like the world hadn't shifted. But I didn't go to the office. I went to see Caleb. Again. This time, I brought someone with me. Not a cop. Not a lawyer. A friend from the firm, Lewis. Ex-Marine, runs logistics now. He owed me a few favors, and I needed someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. We parked across the street from 158 Oak Ridge and waited. I didn't have a plan exactly. Just a sick need for confrontation. Around 8:15, Caleb came out. Alone. He looked different in streetlight, smaller. Not the brooding mystery from Dana's paintings. Just a guy in a thrift store jacket and scuffed sneakers. I got out of the car and called his name. He stopped. "Elliot," he said, smiling. "Didn't expect to see you again." I walked up slowly. Louis hung back near the sidewalk, arms crossed, silent. "I listened to the recording," I said. Caleb tilted his head. And I want to know why." He sighed, like he'd been waiting for that question. "You think this is about love?" he said. "It's not. It never was." "Then what?" "It's about need." He stepped closer. "You were the symbol. The pressure. The constant proving. She didn't want to win anymore, Elliot. She just wanted to breathe." I wanted to hit him, but I didn't. Because he wasn't wrong. Not entirely. "She lied to me," I said. "She lied to herself first." We stood there for a long moment, just two men on opposite ends of a wreck. Then Caleb did something strange. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a flash drive. "What's this?" I asked. "Everything. Emails. Messages. A few of her sketches she gave me. I kept it all." "Why?" He shrugged. "Because I knew it would end like this. And part of me wanted to burn the whole thing down." I took it. Against every better instinct, I took it. "I'm not going to come near her again," he added. "You don't need to worry." "I'm not worried," I said. That part was true. Back home, Dana was asleep on the couch. The TV was playing some old cooking show, the remote halfway between her hand and the floor. She looked peaceful, like none of it had touched her. I plugged in the flash drive in my study and clicked through. There were photos of her sketches, messages from her to him, some sweet, some angry, all raw. She talked about me, about how I'd changed, about how she had changed. And in one long, unset email draft, dated a month ago, she wrote, "I still love Elliot. I think I always will. But he looks at me like I'm a museum piece, something admired, never touched. And you, Caleb, you made me feel real again. But I don't know if that's love or just oxygen." I sat there for a long time after that, staring at those words, trying to decide what to do with them. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in the study with the lamp on and the flash drive still plugged in, clicking through the files until they became numb, like background noise. There was nothing new, just repetition. Evidence of a slow unraveling I hadn't noticed until the fabric was already on fire. At 3:27 a.m., I made coffee. At 4:15, Dana walked in. She was in one of my old sweatshirts, her hair messy, eyes still cloudy with sleep. She looked like the Dana I used to know. "Why are you up?" she asked, voice scratchy. I didn't answer. She noticed the flash drive in my hand. "You went back," she said. "I did." She closed her eyes for a second, like bracing for impact. "Then you know," she whispered. I nodded. "I do." We sat in silence for what felt like forever. The kind where a single word could tip everything over. Finally, she said, "I was going to tell you. About the recording. The paintings. All of it. Were you?" She looked at me, and her face changed. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. "No," she admitted. "I wasn't." And I believed her. Because at that point, what would be the point of lying? "I kept thinking I could patch things up," she said. "That if I just smiled more, cooked more, apologized the right way, you'd forgive me. And maybe we could go back. But you didn't want to go back." She shook her head. "Not really. I just didn't want to be the villain." "You're not," I said quietly. She blinked, surprised. "I think we both built something that stopped being real a long time ago," I said. We just didn't notice because we were too busy pretending. She sat down at the kitchen table, pulled her knees up, and rested her chin on them. Do you hate me? She asked. I thought about it. No, I said. I don't hate you. And I didn't. Not really. What I felt was more complicated. Like grief, but without a funeral. Like the loss of something invisible. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were cold. I don't know what happens next, she said. I do, I replied. She looked up. I'm going to move out. I'll stay with Mark for a bit. You can have the house. I'll transfer the firm to Amanda and finish out this quarter. And then I'll figure it out. You don't have to. I do, I interrupted. Because I think we've both been holding on to something that's already gone. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. Slowly. Like she was finally letting go of a weight she'd carried for too long. I left that weekend. Mark met me at a gas station just outside Rockford with 2 beers in a cooler and a sleeping bag in the back of his truck. You sure? He asked when I handed him the key to the house. Yeah. You want to talk about it? Eventually. We drove in silence for a while, windows down, summer wind rushing through the cab. I stayed in his guest room for 3 weeks. Dana and I texted once or twice, simple things. Logistics. Bank info. Furniture. She never asked me to come back. I never asked her to reconsider. And then, one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Dana. Elliot, I know you're probably still hurt. I am too. But I've been thinking a lot about what we were, and what we weren't. You gave me a good life. A beautiful one. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing it for what it was. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if you should. But I need you to know I never stopped caring. Even when I was at my worst. I hope you find peace. I hope I do too. Love, in whatever way still fits. Dana. I folded the letter and put it in my glove compartment. Not to keep. Just to hold onto a little longer before letting go. Because endings aren't always explosions. Sometimes they're just long silences, interrupted by a whisper that says, "You'll be okay." 3 months later, I went back to the house. Not to stay. Just to see it. Dana wasn't there. She had moved to a small apartment closer to the art center. She sent me the address in a text, along with a picture of a cat she'd adopted named Jasper. I didn't reply. The house looked the same from the outside. Inside, it felt hollow. Like a stage set after the play has ended, and the actors have all gone home. The furniture was still there. The paintings were gone. Even the 3 of Caleb had disappeared. I stood in the middle of the living room and waited to feel something, regret, pain, maybe nostalgia. But there was only quiet. Sometimes, peace feels like numbness. Sometimes, that's enough. Before I left, I went into the studio. It still smelled faintly of turpentine and old canvas. In the corner, I found one last painting turned to face the wall. It was a self-portrait. Dana's. Unfinished, rough, but unmistakable. Her eyes were clearer than in real life. Braver. And maybe a little lonelier. I didn't take it with me. Some things belonged to the past. I rebuilt slowly. Sold the firm to Amanda, and used the money to start a consulting gig from a laptop in Mark's spare room. Worked with small businesses, nonprofits, people who needed more heart than numbers. It felt right. Mark and I got closer. We'd never had much in common growing up, but now we shared something deeper, a quiet understanding of how life never unfolds the way you draw it up. One evening, over a grill and 2 beers, he said, "You ever think about dating again?" I laughed. "Are you asking for you?" He shook his head. Just don't want you to close the book on people because of one bad chapter. I thought about it for a second. I'm not closing the book, I said. Just reading slower this time. One day, I walked past a small gallery downtown and saw Dana's name in the window. Featured artist, Dana Granger. Study of absence. I almost didn't go in. But curiosity has a way of winning. The gallery was small, bright, full of people murmuring soft praise. I kept my distance, walking the perimeter. Her work had changed. Less romantic, more real. Pieces about space, silence, distance. One of the paintings was called The Man in the Window, and I knew without asking it was me. Or at least, the version of me she remembered. She wasn't there. A man in a name tag offered me a program. I took it and left. That night, I wrote her a letter. Dana, I saw the exhibit. You're still good. Maybe better now. Rawr. I think we lost each other the way people lose keys. Not all at once, just a little at a time, until one day we were searching places we'd already looked a dozen times. I hope you're okay. I am. Or getting there. Thank you for the years we shared. Even the hard ones. I never sent it. I didn't need to. Some goodbyes don't need punctuation. Just space. A year later, I live near the lake. I rent a cottage with creaky floors and a porch that overlooks water so still it could be glass. I paint sometimes. Not like Dana. I'm no artist. But enough to understand what it gave her. The silence. The focus. The way it lets you take something inside and put it on the outside, where it doesn't hurt as much. Sometimes I think about calling her. But I don't. Because we said everything we needed to say. And now, we both have space to grow again, separately. And sometimes, that's the most honest kind of love there is.